Paul, you're live. Line
Hello?
line one. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, hey,
Paul, you're
John.
live. Yeah.
Hey, John, first of all, thanks for your hard work. Nobody works harder than you in this business. And just want to say that. But I wanted to bring up a point. All these people calling up about the machines, and it's no way it's the machines. Remember what we did for the last year and a half. We went into Arizona. We said, okay, the steal happened here. How the heck did they steal? And if it was the machines, so all these people calling in, then the ballots, the physical ballots would not match the totals. But they did match. They were only off by a couple hundred.
This segment will continue right after the short commercial break.
John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth, popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now Jay Fred's picking football. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins, your guide to picking football winners. With America's Godzilla of Truth, John Fredericks, along with his partners in point picking, Jack and Nate. Also, weekly contributors to the website of winners, GodzillaWins.com. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's November 18th edition of GodzillaWins.com College Football Preview Show. We spend the first 30 minutes talking college football, where we bring you expert analysis of not only some of the biggest games, but some of the offbeat ones, too. I'm your host, Jack Fredericks, live this week only in New Orleans, Louisiana, at the Harrah's Casino right in the middle of downtown. And joining me is Nate Perry, senior contributor to Godzilla Wins. Nate's, as always, live in his favorite casino in Reno, Nevada, the Cal Neva. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm fired up for another Saturday of college football, man.
I bet you are. Me too, you know. We've got Nate's Pick Six this week. We're going to spend some time talking about his best six picks here in a minute. But first, we need to remind you, you can go to GodzillaWins.com at any time and read all of our great coverage. We've got incredible coverage on the Georgia Bulldogs. We've got some stuff on the Baltimore Ravens. We've got, of course, Nate's picks. We've got the Godzilla, my father's NFL picks. He's been on a rampage lately, absolutely killing the NFL weekend. He sits out this college a half hour because he just can't really do the college stuff. But if you just go to GodzillaWins.com, you can find all of our stuff there. And this is where you'll find Nate's Pick Six for this week. We'll have it up there shortly. We've got some great games on the slate here. Georgia Tech at UNC. We're going to do Miami at Clemson, Utah at Oregon, TCU at Baylor. So we're going to be all over the place today. Nate, let's start with the Georgia Institute of Technology down there in Atlanta, fine school, at number 13 UNC. The Tar Heels are a 21-point favorite. The over-under extremely high at 63. What do you like in this game?
Yeah, right. So we're trying to pick more top 25 games, and this isn't like the greatest week of college football. A lot of teams kind of schedule kind of an off one, especially sort of teams that have college football playoff aspirations. So I just got to kind of preface it with that, because a lot of these point spreads are pretty large, for this week. And this one's no different, right? Like, you have a solid UNC team, but like at the end of the day, they're a 21-point favorite. And like, why are we talking about a 3-touchdown game, right? But yeah, I like UNC here. I like UNC just because, like, I don't know how Georgia Tech scores the ball, right? North Carolina's offense is ludicrously good. Drake May has been a revelation for them. Everyone thought that they would miss Sam Howell, and all they did was get, basically a freshman starter that's better. He's thrown for 3,400 yards, 34 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, rushed for almost 600 yards, and he puts up about 400 yards a game between his rushing and passing. Like, the man is just a monster out there for North Carolina. And that's really like what this game comes down to. It sounds sort of like weak analysis, but like he's completely unstoppable. And Georgia Tech has not been good at stopping opponents. The only place that their defense really excels is they take the ball away quite a bit. But when you're playing a guy that's got a 10-1 or 11-1 touchdown interception ratio, you can't really count on getting those turnovers there. And unless they're turning you over, Georgia Tech can't stop anyone. So this game really just comes down to, I think that North Carolina is going to get their points. They've gotten their points all year. The defense isn't good, but against a Georgia Tech team that averages about 17 points a game, like, does your defense need to be that good to slow them down? I know you have some sort of different thoughts on this. What do you think?
So you like the Tar Heels minus the 21. You're going to lay the 21.
Yep.
That's an that's crazy. I kind of thought you'd go with the point total here. That's always seems to be your play. That's what I'm going with. I love that 63 for the over/under. Here's why. The Tar Heels, like you say, they have the 10th best scoring offense in the country. Drake May is an absolute stud. He's going to play in the NFL one day. I would imagine. I would hope so. I love watching him play. They score at will. They average 38.3 points a game, I believe, if I'm looking at that correctly. So their team total is 43, in case anyone's interested in that. Sometimes I like to play the team total, so that feels a little high. You can get kind of stuck on the hook at 42 or something. And if it was 41 or 40, I'd probably say maybe take the team total too. And the reason is because Georgia Tech's defense is horrible. They are bad. They rank 90th in the country. They can't stop anybody. I watched them play Ole Miss. I took the Yellow Jackets because I was trying to fade Ole Miss, which I do all the time throughout the season, and they looked like trash. Basically what happens with them is they're offensively they have a pretty nice run game, but when they get behind, they have to pass. And right now they're on their third quarterback. They can't throw the ball. It's hard for them to score. They are going to score a little bit here because if there's one thing we know about UNC, their defense stinks. They're ranked 107th in the country. They give up 32.1 points a game. So to me, I'm not comfortable hoping Georgia Tech only scores 17. I think Georgia Tech could put up, 20, 28. I just think this over at 63 is an incredible play. Like you said, Georgia Tech doesn't stop anyone on defense unless it's through turnovers. That's kind of how they can stop teams, and that could also lead to points. So I just see a very high-scoring affair. I guess maybe you might be a little wary because you've been burned on some of these overs with UNC before, but I could have sworn you would take the over, so it's kind of interesting that you're just laying the points. Not a lot of faith in the Yellow Jackets there, my former hometown team of Atlanta. Still gotta give a shout-out to the Yellow Jackets. Great atmosphere down there. Unfortunately, the game's in UNC, so it doesn't matter. Okay, let's go to still, terrific atmosphere. Look, you get down there. You got there's lots of tall buildings. There's at least a couple thousand people outside the stadium. You got the varsity. There's the Coca-Cola factory down the road. I mean, just terrific football atmosphere.
Just huge Atlanta guys
in North Carolina. Yeah, look, we're big Atlanta guys. We love Atlanta. We love Georgia Tech. If they were any good, I would bet them all the time. It's just that they stink, so we can't take them. So let's move on to another ACC game here. Miami at Clemson. Interesting pick. Miami going to South Carolina. Clemson is a 19-point favorite. Over under here 48. Really low total. Nate, what do you like about this game?
Yeah. All right. So now I'm on my total stuff, right? So I do like a total here. I like the over 48. That total just feels too low. Because mostly, and this is like Clemson's going to get their points, right? Miami's another team that just can't stop anybody. They're not terribly good. They're pretty good at sort of slowing down the run game, but they're not very good on the sort of back end. They give up way too many like big sort of explosive passing plays. And Clemson, for as sort of mediocre as they've looked, can break off some big plays. I mean, their quarterback can move the ball down the field. So 48 just feels kind of low, just given that, like, I know that like Miami's offense isn't scaring anyone, but they have, what grades out as sort of a top 25 rushing offense, if if the stats can be believed, the advanced statistics. So they should be able to run it a little bit to, sort of at least hang with Clemson for a while. What's probably going to happen is they're going to get in trouble. This is like a game where it just feels like the script sort of goes out the window after a while. Clemson rips off a couple quick scores. Miami has to start throwing it, which they're not terribly good at, and the game could get out of hand pretty fast. Maybe they get a couple scores on the ground before it gets out of hand. 48 just feels too low for me. I can't see this being like a slow sort of grinded out game. Clemson needs to put up points. They're probably going to be working to try and sort of sway voters into thinking that they're better than they are again. They're sort of on the outside looking into the playoffs. So I think this is just 48 is just way too low for two teams that, these aren't like option teams. They play at decent tempos. I just don't see how it's this low, unless you just have like zero faith in Miami to do anything, which is like fair. Miami has not been awesome. I've watched a lot of Miami games. The sports bar that I watched football at on Saturday, the owner is like a massive Miami football fan for some reason. So I'm always watching Miami games, and they stink. It's horrible watching. So, I mean, I get it if you're reluctant to back Miami, but I think the over here is sort of the play. What do you think?
No, I think you're probably right. It's incredible that we are talking about Miami as a bad passing offense when at the beginning of the season we were talking about their offense and their quarterback as possibly sort of a sleeper for overperforming in the ACC, and they just haven't been good. They're like a turnover machine down there. It's just been kind of a mess. And then of course, they have to travel to a place that's incredibly difficult to play. Dabo Swinney, I think, is going to have his guys up. I agree with you in that the over is just for college. It's really low. There's really a lot of value in choosing that over. I'm just going to be a little different here so that we're not always agreeing with each other, because that can be really boring. Two people saying, oh yeah, well, this is great. And then, the other thing is whenever I agree with Nate on everything, we just lose all the games. I mean, we go 1-5. So I think that says more about Nate than me. So I'm just going to not agree with him all the time so that I can actually get some W's here. So I'm going to stay away from the over just because Nate picked it. I like Clemson minus 19 just because Miami has been kind of a dumpster fire this year. And I still think that Clemson is looking for style points. This time of the year, that's really important to the committee, trying to get a statement win, trying to assert their dominance. I'm not saying that they're in the college football playoff hunt, but I mean, you're still talking about a New Year's Six Bowl, ACC championship, all that stuff. They've been playing really good football in the last month. If you've been paying attention to Clemson, they've been really good from what I've seen. So I like Clemson. I'm gonna lay the 19. I always get a little scared to lay that many points, especially in a game like this. But I'm kind of hoping for a blowout. But the over as well is a really nice play. So let's go to let's stay in the South here, Nate. Let's go to UAB at LSU. It's an interesting pick here. LSU is a 15-point favorite. Over under here at 50.5 points. This game kicks off at night for some reason. What do you like?
Yeah, this is like the primetime night game, right? 9 p.m. Eastern time. I think that what I think about this game is that LSU maybe had a problem with their scheduling. I think that they thought that this would just be a game where they just walked over UAB. UAB's record isn't scaring anybody. They're 5-5, but they do present sort of a tricky matchup for LSU. And LSU is, another team, right? We're talking about, we're covering sort of big teams. We're covering a lot of teams that sort of have aspirations for the college football playoff. LSU is one of them. They need a lot of things to go their way. They almost certainly need to win out. That's probably not even enough. They probably need to start blowing some teams out. They need to blow UAB out. All that being said, I like UAB here. I like UAB just because I think that they do present a difficult matchup in that LSU can't stop anyone in the run game, right? They're outside the top 100 against the run. And UAB, that's really all they want to do. They get their starting quarterback returning after a few weeks injured, which should help UAB as well. But Dwayne McBride has just been an animal for UAB. The man averages almost 7 yards every time he touches the ball, right? 6.9 yards per carry, which is just a ludicrous statistic. So when you have a running back like Dwayne McBride who can just rip off almost a first down every time he's touching the ball, that's tough to stop. It's tougher to stop when you don't have a very good run defense. So I think that that's a tricky matchup for LSU on the defensive end. On the other hand, UAB has a pretty solid secondary, really solid secondary. We've watched some slowdown teams. We've previewed some games with UAB in the past. I think we previewed UAB in Kentucky or Western Kentucky for the preview, and I was sort of skeptical of UAB's pass defense, and they shut down Western Kentucky, and I felt like an idiot. So I'm done doing that. I'm done doubting UAB's secondary. So I think that they slow down LSU enough. So if LSU has to run the ball, this feels like just sort of a grinded-out game where they're going to be hard-pressed to cover 2 touchdowns. I think LSU wins, but I don't think it's just a total blowout just based on the sort of matchups.
Yeah, so, I'm inclined to agree with you. I love UAB in this spot, but I also hate LSU just as an institution. So it's a really hard game for me to see clearly. They're going to win the SEC championship. So or not the championship, but they're going to win the West and go to Atlanta. So what's the sort of motivation to get up for this game and just beat the brakes off of a team that is rightfully so pretty good in all the ways that you said they were. I also kind of like the under here at 50.5 if you are a little scared to lay the points because, as Nate said, there's just a lot going in the favor of kind of a grinded-out game. LSU just isn't that good at stopping the run. But one of the things about college that's different than the NFL when it comes to the run is it's not always a guarantee that when they get into the red zone that they can get in the end zone. A lot of times if you have a good rushing offense in the NFL, you are 70, 80, 60% in the red zone because you can give it to a game-changing back who nobody can stop. But a lot of times these offenses get a little bit the playbook gets smaller as we get into the red zone, and I'm not exactly sure UAB is going to be able to score a ton of points, even if they do put up a bunch of yards. Also, they don't always play a front seven like LSU. I don't like LSU. I'm not an LSU guy, but you have to give it up to the SEC when it comes to the front seven. It's always a cut above the rest. So we could see Dylan Hopkins really, really score, I think, for UAB, I believe. We'll see. We'll see with this game. If you're in the area like I am, if you're in New Orleans, you can go up to Baton Rouge, but in order to get up there, you're going to need some tires. Today, Godzilla Wins Football Saturday College Football Pick 6 is brought to you by TireGet.com. You probably didn't know my dad is in the tire pick business. He cannot hang a picture. That's true. And even Nate knows he's never owned a toolbox in his life, but the man loves tires. Look, we're a tire family. The Fredericks family is a tire. I've got some tires in my garage. I sent Nate a couple of tires, all from TireGet, of course. Dad's got about 20, 30 of his own. We just love tires. We're a TireGet family. We're a TireGet business as well. So check out TireGet.com when you need your next set of tires. It's the only place to really go. He's got an awesome selection there, all made in the USA, very important for our listeners. And don't forget, put in promo code Godzilla. That's promo code Godzilla and get 5% on your next set of tires. We've got affiliates, too, in your town who will put them in. Need tires? Got to think TireGet, Nate. You really got to. Promo code Godzilla. Use that promo code at TireGet.com. Okay, let's go ahead and go to Utah at Oregon. Interesting game here. Big matchup. I mean, this is two top 15 teams here. Oregon is catching 2 points at home, over under 60 and a half. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, so I mean, this is a weird one, right? So I like Utah here, and then I'm sort of on the wrong side of this line move. It opened up, and Utah was actually a slight underdog, and now they're sort of a slight favorite. But I still like Utah here, just because I'm just not so I don't like Oregon, right? In the same way that you have sort of weird biases against a lot of the SEC teams. I watch a lot of games for West Coast teams, and Oregon's just a team that I don't believe in. I didn't really believe in them in week 1 against Georgia when they just got destroyed. They've ripped off a bunch of good wins so far. But are we really saying Bo Nix is the man, right? For anyone that's saying that maybe Oregon, deserves a shot in the college football playoff or something, are we really saying Bo Nix is the guy? I don't see it. And I don't think, and it's mostly just comes down to Oregon's defense isn't very good, right? They just get gashed in the secondary all the time, and Utah should be able to move the ball against them and exploit that weakness. at this point, it looks like the Pac-12 has pretty much cannibalized itself. But, none of them are going to make it to the playoff because they just kind of beat each other in weird ways. So this is mostly a play against Oregon. I like the Utes here. The defense is strong. They force a lot of turnovers. They get after the quarterback a lot. They should be able to move the ball against a pretty bad Oregon defense. Could Oregon surprise us? Sure. But I like Utah.
Right, and the line has been nuts. So the lines that I've seen actually have the Utes as the underdog at +2 or +3. And I think what happened is there's a lot of question over if Bo Nix is going to play because he suffered a knee injury last week. So, if the guy doesn't play, then how do you can't, or Oregon can't be favored even if they're at home. So I think with a hobbled Bo Nix or no Bo Nix, you've got the best defense in the Pac-12 in Utah. They have been disappointing at times, but I'm not a huge Oregon believer either. I have picked them a couple times. They've won me a couple games here or there because the Pac-12, like Nate says, they cannibalize themselves a lot. They're just always beating each other. I'm not even sure. I don't think a Pac-12 team is going to make the college football playoff because nobody can just seem to dominate that conference. And I thought it was going to be Utah at the beginning of the year, but they've had their struggles as well. That defense, though, is really, really incredible. And without Bo Nix, I'd probably lay – if Bo Nix doesn't play, I'd lay 3, I think, because they don't have another option at quarterback right now. That's why they got him in the first place. If he does play, Oregon catching 2, we'll see, but he's going to be hobbled and limited. I just think this defense is going to force a lot of turnovers and end up in the end zone a couple times, and Utah probably win the game outright. So you may want to look at a couple things. The totals doesn't really interest me because of the question at quarterback, so I'm not really that interested in that. If I knew that Bo Nix wasn't playing, I think I'd hammer the under at 60.5 with Utah's incredible defense, but Oregon's been very mum's the word on the Nix status. Not that Nix really even matters that much. A lot of people think he is horrible, but I tend to think that in the Pac-12 he's probably fine. Okay, let's go ahead and move. We got 2 games left here, 2 big ones. Let's go to Georgia at Kentucky. The Dogs, number 1 team in the country, keep rolling. They you're going to have to lay 22.5 points if you like them. Kentucky's a 22.5 point underdog at home in Lexington. Over under is 48. If you are interested in the Dogs or this game, go to GodzillaWins.com. We have an incredible frenetic preview by our senior UGA columnist, Brian Butcher. His preview's up on GodzillaWins.com right now. Those previews are really incredible. Nate, what do you see in this game? What do you like?
Yeah, so this is a game that just feels like a pretty low-scoring game, right? Brian's write-ups on these are incredible. Brian Butcher at GodzillaWins.com. His between the hedges or behind the hedges column is just ridiculous, and he spends quite a bit of time this week. We'll call it 35% of the article talking about Kentucky's sort of woes on offense, right? And their woes on offense mostly have to do with the horrible play of Will Levis, who's being touted as, NFL quarterback. He's getting quite a bit of hype on sort of the major media outlets, right? McShay and Kuiper on ESPN, talking about what a great sort of quarterback prospect Will Levis is. But he's been bad. And he was horrible last week, right? He's 11 of 23 last week for 109 yards and no touchdowns and an interception against Vanderbilt, who maybe has the worst secondary in the Power 5 conference. So he's not been good. He's been ineffective. The offense has sort of stalled. And we had all that fun talk when they started at 4-0, Kentucky, blah, blah, not just a basketball school anymore. And since then, they've gone 2-4. So they're just not a good team now. So this is a game where it feels like Georgia could just blow them out, like totally. If Will Levis is having bad games against Vanderbilt, I don't see how you get right against a Georgia defense that does everything well, right? Georgia as a team just does everything well. There are no weak spots here. So I don't know how he gets any sort of relief or respite against this team. So I just don't see how he scores, right? This total is pretty low. It's 48. That's a pretty low college total. But I think that it's still worth a look at the under. And I'm playing the under just because I have doubts about whether or not UK can score. Like, Georgia's going to get their points. That's just a given. But I don't see how Kentucky can put up enough to really put this over the total. The only thing that would put this over the total is if Georgia just gets loose and just starts running up the score on them just for fun, which I don't think they have motivation to do. Like, they're in the college football playoff, basically, like in almost any scenario from here on out. Like, it would be really hard for Georgia to miss the playoffs. So they don't really, I don't think they care as much about style points. They probably just want to win a game and move on.
I think they probably also want to protect some of their key players on both sides of the ball from injury. So if they get up early, they may start rotating heavy. If you've been reading Brian's previews, you know that Kirby Smart has been rotating, especially on defense, more than usual this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see a heavy second string unit if they're up by 10 or 11 points, which really means that it's really hard to lay those points, in my opinion, because there's just not a lot of motivation here for the Dogs to blow them out. My issue with that is that Kentucky is not any good. Like, how do you suck against Ole Miss, who has a horrible defense, and then expect to play well against UGA, who has a top 5 defense? And not only that, they have a top 5 offense. I think they have a top 5 special teams. I've stayed in some motels in Athens, top 5. They got some top 5 pizza places, top 5 music venues. You know, they're top 5 in everything right now. I mean, Athens, UGA, this place is crushing it. So I don't see how you can really do anything other than play the under, like Nate says, and pray that Georgia just doesn't put it on them in the first half, or lay the points. I'm going to lay the points with the Dogs here because I have no interest or trust in the Kentucky Wildcats. They have just absolutely imploded since early in the season. They made me look really dumb because I wrote a long preview, like a love letter to Will Levis and the Wildcats about how good they're going to be and how this game was going to be like college game day, you know, number 1 versus number 6 or something. A team with 1 loss and a team with no losses. But I was wrong. It was Tennessee. That was 2 weeks ago. Georgia beat them. I was right about that. I'd like to remind the listeners that I was the only one in this entire company that took UGA then. I'm going to take them again now at 22.5. I don't care if I lose the bet. I'm rolling with the Dogs all year long. And that pains me to say as someone who grew up sort of really annoyed with the fan base. That felt a little delusional. Well, they're not delusional anymore. Now they're just good. So let's go ahead and take the Dogs there, 22.5. Nate likes the under at 48. Okay, TCU at Baylor, last game here. Nate, we got 4 minutes. I know you got a lot of thoughts on your Big 12 game here. No Big 10 games this week. Kind of an interesting choice. We're usually talking about the Indiana Hoosiers or something. Also no Auburn, which is a nice little break from the Auburn nonsense that you seem to be bringing to the table. Let's talk TCU at Baylor. Number 4, the Horned Frogs go into Waco, I think, is where Baylor is, I think.
That's correct.
Waco, that's right, in Texas. Baylor is a 2.5-point underdog. Over-under here, 57. Very quickly, Nate, what do you think? What do you like?
Yeah, so, I mean, just like, not to be – I actually have like 2 things here. I like the over here, and I like Baylor here. So this is like sort of a double-header game for me. I like both. This is just a huge game for TCU. They didn't look awesome against Texas last week. I watched that whole game. They won 17-10. The defense played really well. But that felt like a little bit of an outlier to me in that, TCU hasn't really limited opponents to 10 points like at all this season. They're pretty content to play, to get into track meets. Their defense gives up a lot of big plays. They're pretty reliant on big plays themselves. So, looking at sort of their games as a whole, that TCU defense looks a little bit fraudulent against Texas, and it was just one game, right? Likewise, Baylor looked horrible against Kansas State. Kansas State injured their quarterback early on. They went to a backup, and Baylor just looked totally lost against him. He threw 3 touchdown passes, and they just looked like they had no idea what they were doing. They weren't expecting to have to defend the pass, and then they just got lost out there. So this is a game where Baylor's coming off a 31-3 loss against K-State, and now they're, basically a 2-point underdog to the number 4 team in the country. This feels like a trap, right? Baylor's going to come to play. They would love to knock TCU out of the college football playoff picture. And at some point, TCU is going to stub their toe. It's just how it goes. This team just isn't as good as their 10-0 record indicates. So I like Baylor here. I like the over here. I like sort of a return to the sort of track meet style of play that both these teams really sort of seem to prefer. They both sort of tend to play pretty high-scoring games. So give me the over. Give me Baylor.
You can hear my dog in the background there. She agrees with you. She is not a TCU fan. She thinks their defense is exactly what you say, very fraudulent. That was a really good win against Texas, and the defense, I think, shut them out. They're not going to do that against Baylor. Baylor is a bad matchup for TCU's defense. They run the ball. TCU cannot stop the run. I think that, like Nate says, the fact that this line is so sharp means that Vegas, or the big money, is really, really loving the Baylor Bears. I love them here too at 2.5. The only thing you have to worry about is that after getting blown out by Kansas State, Baylor just doesn't get up for this game and just gets waxed, while TCU, of course, has motivation because nobody thinks that they're any good. But we'll see. I like Baylor at 2.5. Nate likes the over at 57 as well as Baylor at 2.5. Okay, that is our college football preview show with your host, Jack Fredericks, Nate Perry, and my dog Hazel, who jumped in there in a minute. We are going to go to a quick message from our sponsors. When we come back, we're talking NFL with the Godzilla. We got the Jets at the Patriots. We got the Cowboys at the Vikings, the Colts and the Eagles, and the Panthers and the Ravens. We got a lot of games. We're going to talk about all of them. Quick word from our sponsors, and we'll see you in a bit.
John Fredericks, America's Godzilla of Truth, popular and proficient in picking politics with prophetic precision. And now Jay Fred's picking football. Are y'all ready for this? All across the airwaves and streams of the John Fredericks Media Network. When the game is on your mind and money's on the line, Godzilla Wins, your guide to picking football winners. With America's Godzilla of Truth, John Fredericks, along with his partners in point picking, Jack and Nate. Also weekly contributors to the website of winners, GodzillaWins.com. Before you make that play, hear what J. Fred has to say. Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
Oh yeah, for entertainment purposes only.
Well, I love the sound of that music because that means it's Saturday and that means it's Godzilla Wins, and I'm your host of GodzillaWins.com, John Fredericks, with my two counterparts here. Jack Fredericks, my son, and he is in, I think he's in New Orleans today, right, Jack? You're in New Orleans at the casino there?
Oh, yeah,
right?
Harris Casino.
Ready
right
to go,
downtown.
right? Harris at, we got Nate is at the Cal Nev Casino, where he actually got kicked out of it permanently, so he has to go in there disguised. He's with us in Reno, Nevada. Got a little frog in my throat here. Great to have everybody with us today. Great analysis. I love listening to your guys' college football analysis. Great job. We're a little pumped today. You go on Getter Live, too. Catch us there. Got the camera going on Getter Live. So keep the chats going. And I love this. This is the most fun thing that I do. I got to tell you guys all week. And I don't like getting up on Saturday. And I know Nate doesn't because he's got to get up at, 3 a.m. out there in Vegas. But it's not a lot of fun for you guys to get up so early, or me. But this is the most fun thing I do. So I really enjoy it. And now I'm on a roll, right? By the way, Jack, how about them Titans on Thursday? I'm fired up. You know, they opened the season at 40-1 to win the Super Bowl on DraftKings. I bet him there. Then they went to 45-1. I almost bet him there, but I'm like, I don't know if Tannehill's going to be okay, so I already got my jack on it. Now they're down to 28-1. I bet him again after the game on Thursday night. This is the best run defense, guys, in the National Football League. Nobody realizes this. We have the number one defense, the Titans, against the run. And, if you looked at their offense, it finally came to life. Now, I know the Packers have their issues, but that jump pass by Derrick Henry made me and Joe laugh. We thought that was hilarious. That was a touchdown. But you play that kind of defense, and half their team is out. So when they get back, it's going to be different. So, look, I'm 1-0 from Thursday. I love winning Thursday night games because you get a little juice, when you're going. You get a little kick in your foot there because it's like, all right, I started 1-0. I'm not going from behind. I'm one game under 500 for the entire season. I pick every game, and I'm going to go on a roll, and it's going to start now. And so, guys, let's get right to it. And let's start with Philadelphia Eagles going to Indianapolis. Jeff Saturday, their coach. Only coaching experience he ever had was high school football. And I think that was in Georgia somewhere outside of Atlanta near Roswell High School. So that's the only football experience he's got. He won last week. Eagles falling asleep or something at home, getting beat by Washington at home. I think they were, a 13-point favorite or something. Or 11. They end up getting beat the whole game. I bet the Eagles that game in the money line at the half. And normally I never do that. Whenever I break my rules, I lose. So, you know what? My problem. So Eagles, though, 7-point favorite going to Indy. I just don't see this Colts team. I think the Eagles fell asleep last week. Big favorite. They were humbled. I think they go into Indy, blow them out. I like the Eagles -7. Let's go to Nate and Reno.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. So this feels like a little bit of an overreaction, right? Before the Eagles lost to Washington, they were somewhere in the neighborhood of a 10-point favorite against Indy. Now they're a 7-point favorite against Indy. I'm not really sure that we learned that much from the loss to Washington. I mean, that's just like a tough divisional game, right? Like, Philly was going to lose at some point. Those divisional games, traveling to Washington, it felt like a spot where that could happen. It did happen. I'm trying not to put too much stock into that. Likewise, are we really like Jeff Saturday believers after, that little bounce they got last week where they, won their first game and Jeff Saturday is, batting 1,000 as a head coach? I don't really buy it. This team is still just like, especially offensively, they're just bad, right? And Matt Ryan's bad. And now he's the starting quarterback again. So I don't really see it. I think the Eagles have to be the play here. So I agree with you. Philly's still a really good team. I think the Colts are still a pretty bad team. So I'm willing to lay the points with Philly here.
Oh, wow. Laying the points. I'm impressed. So, Jack, I'm talking to my son last week, and I'm driving from point A to point B at a 7-hour drive, I think, or 5 hours. Late at night during that game, I think I was going from Culpeper. I emceed the Bryce Reeves event, driving back to Raleigh. So it was a 5-hour drive. And I'm talking to my son. He says, I bet Washington on the money line. And I'm like, you're crazy. They're not going to win. And here was his logic. And I got to thinking about it. It was pretty smart. He took like 500 to 100. And he said, do you really think the Eagles are going to go 17-0? Answer, no. Nobody does that. I think the only team was the Miami Dolphins. And that was only
New England.
14.
New
England got beat in the final game by the Giants. No, it was the Dolphins, I think, were the only undefeated team, right?
Right.
And he said they're not going to go undefeated. And every time now that I bet, I'm going to get 5 or 6 to 1. So, all I have to do is hit one of the 5. I'm even. He hits the first one, so he wins 500. That was a pretty smart bet there, Jack. Go ahead.
Absolutely savvy bet by me.
Savvy.
Always giving you the best analysis. Here, you guys suck. You're wrong. The Eagles aren't that good. And here's the thing. And, you guys can, it's an overreaction. Jeff Saturday beat the Raiders, blah, blah, blah. No way. Hey, we're talking culture, Dad. We're talking culture. Jeff Saturday has turned around the culture of the Indianapolis Colts. This team is playing better on every facet of the game. They're blocking better. They're running better. Matty Ice back there ran for a 40-yard sprint last week. Fastest I've ever seen the guy run, except when he ran out of Atlanta here last year. I mean, this team
We're calling that a sprint, huh?
Yeah, calling it a sprint. It's about as fast as I could go here. So Matty Ice sprinting down the field for 40 yards. This team is just incredibly motivated to turn it around with their man, Jeff Saturday, proving everybody wrong. Here's the real issue with the Eagles. And Washington is a good team, so that's one of the reasons I hammered that money line, but my logic was right on that. The Eagles' run defense is horrible. They're like 28th or something. And 2 weeks ago I would have told you, well, that doesn't matter because the Colts can't run the ball because their offensive line blows. But that's not true anymore. Jeff Saturday had them back to what they know how to do well, and they did it really well against Las Vegas last week. They're going to continue that trend. I'm not saying they're going to win the game. I'm not hammering the money line like I did last week, but I'm going to take the 7 absolutely. I don't care if I'm a square or an overreactor or whatever. I think the Eagles are going to start to run into a little bit of trouble here, and I think that if the Colts never ran the ball, I would be a little bit more bullish on Philadelphia, but the Eagles can't stop the run, and so that means that they don't control the game. They don't control the clock. Their defense is on the field for a gazillion snaps, and they win. Sounds like maybe Nate's dog also likes the Colts. I think I hear Bo in the background there. So look, we got Hazel involved the last 30 minutes now. Bo's with me on the Jeff Saturday.
First of all, you can't build culture. You can't look. I love the Saturday hire because I love ex-players coaching. Like I love my coach Vrabel, but you can't build culture in a week. But I think it was a good hire, and we'll see what happens with Jeff Saturday. I think he's a fun guy, and he was certainly a great center. Offensive line coaches though, haven't done very well. Like we had the guy in Tennessee, Jack. What was his name? Munchak, right? We had him. I mean, he was
your one example.
Yeah, well, no, and then there was Abe Gibran with Chicago. He was an offensive lineman back before you guys were toddlers.
Yeah.
Abe Gibran with the Bear. He wasn't very good. And then we had the guy on the Vikings, Nate, that had the pencil in his ear. That big guy. The guy, remember? The guy got
Lions. Matt
Patricia. That was for the Lions, though.
No. He had the pencil in his ear. Was the Vikings coach, and remember the guy? He got ran out of the Vikings because he sold his Super Bowl tickets to somebody. Remember that? I can't remember the guy's name. Yeah, well, those are those. You guys are too contemporary for that. Anyway, let's bottom line this. Jack likes Indy +7. Me and Nate going with the Eagles -7. Okay, Detroit goes to the Giants. I'm going to start here. I've been on the Giants from after they beat us on game 1, which we should have won that game. Missed field goal, missed a tackle for a 2-point conversion. Titans should have won that game. I've been on the Giants. They're going to run the football. Detroit has no run defense. They have no defense whatsoever. I can't believe the Giants are at home and they're only laying 3. Giants get no respect. I bet them every week. I win every single week. This is unbelievable that they're only a 3-point underdog against the team sitting at the bottom of the division that can't stop anybody. Giants get no respect at home at the Meadowlands -3. I love the Giants, Jack.
You're such a liar. You have not been on the Giants since they beat the Titans. You spent like 4 weeks talking about how much they sucked and how the Titans should have won that game and how the Giants are smoke and mirrors. You just recently got on the Giants train, so don't tell me like you've been in the Giants business for 9 weeks.
Okay, but I have been on the Jets.
I have. You have been on the Jets, yeah. You're a New York homer. We know that. I've been on the Giants since week 1. I took them against Tennessee. The only time I faded them was against Seattle because we're Seahawks fans over here, so we always do that. I like the Giants in this spot. Just, again, Saquon Barkley's going to eat here. The Lions can't stop the run. They came back against the Bears last week. That's not going to happen this week. The Bears are an undisciplined nightmare who can't close a game. The Giants can close a game. They'll win this game by 7. I feel like this is a trap, and I feel like Nate's going to take the Lions, but maybe I'm wrong.
Okay, Nate?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, you actually are wrong. So I like the Giants here, actually. It's mostly just a play against the Lions. The Lions, they had that, comeback. But that's not, a real, result. And the reality is that, it took a wild comeback for the Lions to do that because the defense is bad. The defense is bad. The Giants are slowly starting to win me over. As much as I hate to say that, it pains me to say that. But they just win sometimes. So I actually like the Giants here. To surprise all of you, do I think their 7-2 record is ridiculous and a fraud? Yes. Do I think that the Lions are pretty overrated right now? Yeah. So I'll lay the points of the Giants here.
As the quote Big Tuna, you are what your record says you are. And the Giants are 7-2. I mean, they keep winning games, and everybody keeps fading them. So we all like the Giants, right? All 3 of us. Okay. Here's a team I can't figure out. Cleveland going. Well, they're not in Buffalo. They're in Detroit. they had to move that game, assuming the Bills can get out of there. I don't know why they didn't leave earlier in the week, but the Bills -8, ostensibly supposed to be a home game. They're in Detroit in Ford Field. I mean, I just can't figure this Cleveland team out. I absolutely have no idea who's going to win this game, who shows up for the Bills, what's going to happen in Detroit. Buffalo looked like the juggernaut of all time when they, on the Monday night when they absolutely crushed the Titans. And, we put our second string in the middle of the third quarter. It was that bad. It was a horrible game, Titans' worst game in a very long time. But since then, the Bills just haven't been that impressive. But either is Cleveland. And this whole Deshaun Watson thing, I don't know. This is just a troubled franchise. I don't get it. I don't pass on a lot of games. I have no feel for this game in Detroit. I'm going to pass, Nate.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to pass, but I'll make a pick. I like the Bills here. I'd like to pass just because I don't like recommending people just lay all these points all the time. But this is a huge spot for the Bills, right? They've lost 2 straight. This is a team that is very clearly looking to play in a Super Bowl, win a Super Bowl. And the Browns are just a weird team, and they looked terrible against Miami last week, especially on defense. I mean, Miami just did what they wanted on offense. I suspect that with this game moving to a dome in Detroit, that the Bills should be able to exploit this defense similarly to the Dolphins. They feel like, the type of team that can do that, that can just light them up through the air like Miami did. Obviously, Miami's sort of something special with Tua and all their receivers, Waddle and Hill. But I like the Bills here myself. It just feels like a spot where the Bills need to get right. They need to win one. And I don't think that the Browns, if the Bills start passing it, I don't think the Browns can hang with them. I just don't think they can keep up in a sort of high-scoring, high-flying game. So I think that the way the matchups work, I think it favors the Bills. So call me a sucker, but I'll lay the points.
Jack?
Yeah, I mean, the only way that the Bills lose games is if the opposing team has an incredible secondary and forces the Bills to rely on some sort of run game, which they don't have. They don't run the ball at all. And the opposing team has a good offense with playmaking receivers, and they force Josh Allen to turn the ball over in the red zone, which he's been doing lately. The Browns can't do any of that. Why? Because the Browns suck. So just lay the 8 here and hope that the Bills are trying to get right and blow out the Browns. I'm also wary of laying 8. What I did is I teased this with the Ravens game, and I got the line down to 1. But I would still lay the 8 here because I think that the Browns are just not good. They've won me a couple games, but that their secondary is horrible, and they can't score. So that's like 2 of the most important things you have to have if you're an NFL team, and they don't have them. So I think the Bills win by 2 touchdowns here. I'd lay the 8.
Okay, George O'Bailey, who's on Get Her Live, he likes Cleveland. He likes Cleveland minus the 8. So we'll see. I mean, +8. George likes Cleveland +8. So let's go to Jets at Patriots. Patriots 3.5. This is the biggest sucker bet in the world. You look at this game, and all you guys are going to tell me is how great the Patriots are, how great they are in the second half of the season, what a magic maestro Bill Belichick is, how great their defense is, how they've beaten the Jets 9 million times, et cetera, all X, right? Jets +3.5. I'm going to get this team on a roll, playing absolutely fearless football. They're loose. They don't care. I love this team on the road. Look at their road record. They're undefeated on the road. Everybody takes them lightly. They're gonna go to New England, win the whole game. Jets +3.5. Jets, baby. Love the Jets. I've been on them. Love the Jets in this game. They're going to beat the Patriots. This team's getting the playoffs, and they actually have a shot to win a playoff game. I love the Jets. They're so much better than anybody gives them credit for. Jets +3.5. My best bet of the week. Jack.
Yeah, and like we just need to remind the listeners that my dad has a little bit of a homer streak in him. He's a Titans fan. He knows that. But he's also a little bit of a Jets fan. And when the Jets are feeling good, he's feeling good. The New Jersey comes out of him. He starts you can hear it in his voice. He starts telling stories about Edison and going across the river to the island. So I mean, you just got to take it with a little grain of salt.
The island.
The Jets are good. Yeah, over there at the island, taking the
Verrazano
subway,
Bridge,
taking the train. I mean, there's a. I've seen him wear. What I'm saying is, I've seen him wear a Jets sweatshirt before. I'm not going to lie to you.
I don't own a Jets sweatshirt. That was years ago. What? That was your grandfather's?
That was years ago, yeah.
No, that was your grandfather's sweatshirt. So that was
maybe
my
you
dad's
lost it, but
sweatshirt.
I've seen you put it on. Is what I'm saying. And so, listen, I'm also I have some roots to that area. I love the Jets too. Look, I don't even want the points. Give me the money line. Jets plus 150. I'm taking that. I love the Jets here in this spot. The Patriots are sneaky good. They're in the wild card hunt. They keep winning games. We all know Bill Belichick gets better as the year goes on, but you can't trust that offense. And I mean, you're telling me that this Jets secondary, which absolutely eats up horrible quarterbacking, is going to let Mac Jones carve them up? No, thank you. Give me the Jets money line. I don't even want the points. Book it, Nate.
I mean, you guys are wrong. So this is like a classic Belichick spot. Like, we all know that, right? And like, rah, like, yeah, like John's, everyone's backing the Patriots here because, they own the Jets, whatever. That's not, I don't really know if that's the narrative, right? I feel like the narrative is everyone's just like, are these Jets for real? Like, that's all I see on like ESPN, right? It's like, are these Jets for real? Look at this defense, yada, yada, yada. Best secondary in the league, Sauce Gardner, shut down, Mac Jones, whatever, blah, blah. That's the whole narrative I'm seeing. I think that this is a game where the sports books are just begging you to take the Jets, right? Because the Jets look pretty good, right? They've played good games. They beat the Bills, a couple weeks ago. Like, the Jets are, flying high. But I think I like the Patriots here. So I disagree with you guys. I like the Patriots here. I'm seldom a big Pats guy, but I just can't ignore the trends, right? Like, Bill Belichick knows the Jets pretty well, and he owns them, right? This isn't really a rivalry in that, New England has won 13 straight, and they've covered every time. So this is not a game that favors the Jets. I feel like it's a trap the other way. I feel like this is just begging you to take a high-flying Jets team and a Patriots team that's pretty underwhelming. So I'll lay 3.5 with the Patriots. I think they win here. And then I think everyone starts talking about how, like, maybe Zach Wilson isn't as good as we think he is, because he's not. So I'll lay the points with the Pats. I'll be the contrarian here.
Our recap: Nate likes Pats minus 3.5. Jack and John, we're going with the Jets, Jets, plus the 3.5. Carolina goes to Baltimore. Ravens minus 13. You guys knew who I'm going to pick here, right? I don't care about laying points against bad teams. I've not done well this season with that. A lot of these
underdogs. How much did you win at Rosie?
Whoa, Rosie's Gaming, yes, comes in there. Rosie's ones. Where's my action here, baby? Where's my live read for Rosie's?
They're just begging you to take them.
I'll just get some in, baby. Al says Rosie's.
Get some Rosies in right here.
Get some Rosies in, Al.
Let's hear about Rosies.
I think that's Al's message that it's time to go to a break, right? Subliminal message. So when we get back, Carolina at Baltimore. Bears at Falcons, and the whatever's at the Texans. Al, that wasn't very subliminal. Al says, dude, go to a break, which we'll do right now.
You're listening to Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network. For a deeper dive without the jive, visit the website of winners, GodzillaWins.com. Let's get back to the show with the guys in the know, John, Jack, and Nate. It's Godzilla Wins on the John Fredericks Media Network.
All right, it's great to have you back. We got 30 minutes. We got a lot of games to go over. Jack Fredericks with me, my son. He's in New Orleans today at the Harris Casino there. Nate in Reno. He's our surrogate son. By the way, we have our board meeting for GodzillaWins.com December 29th, Thursday night. We're gonna do it in Nashville. We got tickets, Nashville Cowboys. I'm sorry, Titans Cowboys, and Joe is coming. Jack's brother, my youngest son, he's coming too. He's going to be the secretary. So that's where we're going to have our corporate meeting at GodzillaWins.com. Go to GodzillaWins.com for all the sports information you want. We're not woke. We're right. That's what you need to do. Go to GodzillaWins.com. Okay, we got a lot of games here, guys. Short period of time. Carolina at Ravens. Ravens minus 13. I'm going with the Ravens. I'm laying the 13. Some point in time, I've got to win one of these big wood bets. I think it starts here. I think this is going to be an absolute blowout. Jack?
Yeah, so as I talked about earlier, I teased this down to 6 with the Bills. So I got a 7-point teaser. So I got the Bills at -1 and the Ravens at -6. Of course, the juice is not as good. But I don't really trust the Ravens to win by 2 touchdowns. They seem to blow leads all over the place. They are cooking right now. I mean, they're playing really well. But and the Panthers stink. I mean, they beat the Falcons. Okay, great. They've had some time off, but they're not that good. But I don't know. I don't have a great feel for this game. That's why I teased it down. I just don't really trust that the Ravens aren't going to give up a bunch of points in the fourth quarter, and it's going to be a backdoor cover. Nate, what do you think?
I would be worried about the backdoor cover if I thought that Baker Mayfield could do that. PJ Walker's hurt. PJ Walker sort of had a little bit of a rejuvenating effect on the Panthers. They looked pretty decent for a couple weeks, and then he gets hurt. Now they're back to Baker, right? We know how that looked when Matt Rule was the coach. Are we expecting Baker Mayfield to look different under their new interim coach? I'll believe it when I see it. This line feels like it's going to move. I think if you're going to bet the Ravens, bet it now at 13, just because there's a little bit of question about Lamar Jackson. He's sick again. It sounds like he'll play, but he hasn't been practicing because he's just sick constantly. So I like the Ravens here. The defense is getting better. Ravens are cooking. They look awesome, and I'll never trust Baker Mayfield until he shows me that he's trustworthy. So give me the Ravens.
Okay, we all Jack, recap. What was your pick again? I missed that. You teased it down.
Ravens.
Okay, so
well,
all
yeah,
of us.
So
on...
I teased it. But
okay.
Yeah, if you force me to pick it, I just pick the Ravens.
Okay, so we're all over the Ravens on this one. Look, I just can't see this Carolina team. I mean, they had a couple good games here, but and they covered 2 times since their fire sale, but I just don't see it. Okay, Bears at Falcons. I'm going to start with Jack. You're a Falcons fan. I bet them last week. I talked you into betting them. I hate this team. I call them the Atlanta Clown Show. That was I think it was a Thursday night because I think I was home sick and I didn't have anything else to do. So I'm sitting on the couch watching the game. They suck. I just got to tell you, they are a clown show. Mariota, this is why we got rid of him. You see the ball he threw when he was on the ground? He just threw it up like the clown he is. I mean, this team they have no defense. This team is pathetic. What, they get beat last week by Carolina in the rain? They suck. I like the Bears. Give me the 3. Run the football down their throat. They have no defense. I was right from the beginning of the season. They're a clown show. Jack, go ahead.
Like I said, I'm going to start with Jack, and then you went on your rant there. Thanks. Yeah. Nice tease, I guess. Look, you talked me into betting him last week because of your whole bad juju nonsense about how you can't bet against your team. You absolutely can bet against your team when your team is the Atlanta Falcons. I was going to take the Panthers, and you told me not to, and so you owe me like $50. So I hammered the Falcons on this game because I figure the Bears aren't any good either. So I'm going to take the 3. There's no real rhyme or reason for taking the 3. Mariota does not look good, and the Falcons' defense is the worst in the league. But they're a little bit better against the run than they are against the pass, and we know that Justin Fields can't really throw the ball. So, there's something to be said about the Falcons here. Also, the Bears gave up that huge lead to the Lions last week, so you just don't really know who the Bears are or where they are. But my favorite bet, and this is really what I did to kind of hedge myself, is I took the Bears team total over at 22.5 because the Bears have scored 29 points or more in their last 3 games, and the Falcons' defense is miserable, and they let up points. It's not just yards; they let they let guys score touchdowns. So I also like the Bears plus 22.5 for the team total. They're going to score 25, 26 points. It's just a matter of if the Falcons can score 30. So that was kind of my hedge there. Nate, what do you think?
I like the Bears here. I like the Bears just because, I don't know. we were all over Atlanta like early in the season, right? We were like, "Ooh, they look good." Marco wasn't really valuing them correctly. We were betting a lot of Falcons games, making some money. Getting our sweet NFC South tickets, futures in. But the defense it just worries me now. I mean, I kept thinking that the defense is going to get better for Atlanta, and it's not. They're just bad. They've lost 3 out of the last 4 games. And the Bears just look like a different team. They're losing games, but they're scoring a ton of points. So this feels like a shootout. Like, I'm not sure that either team can stop each other. So in a battle of 2 pretty bad defenses, I'll take the team with the better offense, which is the Bears. So I'll take the Bears plus 3.
Okay, we're all over the Bears. I can't bet the Falcons, as I said. And I love the Bears' new offense. They can't throw the football, so they turn Justin Fields loose. They're going to run. They're going to run over Atlanta. I love the Bears here, plus 3. That's my second best bet, along with the Jets plus 3.5. Okay, Washington at Houston. Washington's minus 3. Look, they went to Philadelphia. What was that, Monday night? They go down there. They beat them. Now, look, I'm sick of these flags. When I saw the Titans game, let me go on a little bit of a 90-second rant. Titans game against our big win on Thursday night at the Packers. When I was listening to Titans radio in the car just before I got home at about 8:30 p.m., the announcers were telling me that crew, officiating crew, had for 3 years straight the lowest amount of penalties in the NFL, and it wasn't even close. Like, they were like 30% under everybody else, and this season they were 42% under. Now, you watched that game. It was an ugly game. People can't stand that kind of football. I embrace the ugly, but there were only a handful of penalties. You look at that Commanders game last week, right? The Eagles stop Washington. They sack Heineke. The guy gets tackled, and they throw a flag basically at the end of the game, roughing the passer, total baloney. I mean, what do you expect the guy to do, the defensive lineman to do? He tackled him. They throw a flag extending the drive and ending the opportunity for the Eagles to go down and score. So the officials determine that game. That's what's killing the NFL. That was a horrible call. Having said that, Washington's defense is legit. Texans are horrible. I'm going with the Commanders minus 3 on the road. Jack?
The market for this game, I wish it were better. I kind of figured with the Texans, after the Commanders' huge win, that we would just be catching more points, because I kind of think the Texans could cover here if we got 6. But 3 points is not a lot for a Texans team that's just not very good. I am a Commanders believer. They've been playing really well with Taylor Heineke. They have an incredible defense, and they ride that pretty high. They've got a good rushing approach. So I'm going to lay the 3 here just because I like Washington as a team, but I really wish I was getting a couple more points, because I figured overreaction, money goes on the Commanders, Texans stink, and maybe you get 6, maybe 5, 4.5 even. But I don't know. I was just surprised to see this settle at 3. Nate, what do you think? Do you agree with that, Nate, or am I just wrong?
I mean, I don't know. The way I'm looking at it is it feels like a trap, right? Like, everyone's thinking, like, ooh, like Washington's, bouncing back. They're looking good. They beat an undefeated Philly team. Texans stink. They're horrible. They can't beat anybody. So this just looks like a trap to me. I'm inclined to take the Texans here plus the points. Taylor Heineke's been great as a starter for Washington. Who knows if he's playing this week? It looks like Carson Wentz is healthy again. So if Carson Wentz comes back, it's like a no-brainer. Like, then you automatically pull the trigger on the Texans, right? Because Carson Wentz stinks. But even still, it feels like kind of a flat spot for them. They might have had their game of the season last week against Philly. So I like the Texans plus the points here just because it feels like a trap. So I'll just lean into it.
I like the Texans.
I like the Texans.
And
it just feels like everyone's begging me to take the Commanders, so I'll go the other way.
And you can always just kind of take a gamble that Wentz is going to play and kind of hammer the Texans. And then if he doesn't, you can hedge if you want to and move off your position in some other kind of interesting ways, maybe the under there. But yeah, I mean, if Wentz plays, I'm inclined to agree with Nate. I actually kind of like the Texans. I'm a switch. I'm gonna go Texans with or without Wentz. Let's just let's just
so
hammer
you're
it out.
switching
Well,
to
get off the
Texans.
Commanders.
All right, I'm taking the Commanders minus the 3. I'm not a big Washington fan, but Houston's just a hapless team, and I think Washington's going to make the playoffs. They're going to make it as a wild card. The whole thing's wide open, and they got a pretty decent defense. So I'm gonna go with Washington, whatever's minus the 3. Rams at Saints. Saints are a tough team to figure out. Rams are just horrible guys. I mean, at some point you got to face reality here. It's like the season of quarterbacks are done, right? Tom Brady basically done. Aaron Rodgers didn't look very good again on Thursday night. Maybe it was the Titans defense, but he also missed several key passes he should have had. He didn't look very good. Stafford, he looks absolutely done. I can't bet the Rams. I mean, I cannot bet this team. I don't like New Orleans either, but they're at home. They're minus 2.5. The Rams, I don't even think this team went to Super Bowl. I don't even think they're going to make the playoffs. At some point, you got to face the music here. L.A. is just not a very good football team right now. New Orleans, they win a game, lose a game, win a game, lose a game. Got beat last week in Pittsburgh, got smoked. Now they come home. I think they win. I like the Saints minus the 2.5. Nate?
I don't want to pick a side here. I'll just play the under in this game. I think it feels like a low-scoring game. I don't know how the Rams score points. It's unclear if Matt Stafford's going to play. The Cooper Kupp injury is horrible for them and for their offense. Their offense is already bad. And to lose their best offensive player, I just don't see how they score points. Saints defense is pretty good, but they're also not scaring anybody on offense. So this feels like a low-scoring game. I'm going to stay off the side. I'll just take the over/under set at 39. It's a really low total. I don't see how they get to 39, so I'll just stick with the total play here, under 39.
Under 39, Jack?
Yeah, so Phil Sibthorpe in the chat is from, I think, Australia, and is asking if you can bet multis in the U.S. So, for example, if one player gets X amount of points plus team wins, get a big win, basically a parlay with like a prop parlay. A lot of books, yes. The short answer, yes, you can bet prop parlays. A lot of books have rules against what you can lay and what you can't, and how you can combine them. But you can do that. So just kind of clear that up. I don't have a good feel for this game. The only thing that I've been doing a lot this season with the Rams is just looking at, this is a prop, looking at sack totals and just taking the over, because the Rams have the worst offensive line in the history of the United States, and Matt Stafford can't really move. So a lot of times I can hit a small little prop bet on that, but I'm not taking this game. I have no feel for the Saints. I'll be in New Orleans, so I guess, hey, look, I'm in New Orleans. Never mind. Let's lay the 2.5. Let's go Saints.
I mean, you're in New Orleans, right? You're going to be right there watching the game. You're in New Orleans this weekend.
Shout out,
the Saints.
Yeah, shout out to the Kingpin.
Yeah, man.
Right, I used to live here. For those who don't know, I used to live here. I used to go watch Saint games at the Kingpin on Britannia all the time. So shout out to the Kingpin. I'll be there on Sunday watching the Saints play. It is absolutely live. Nate and I saw a playoff game at the Kingpin a couple years ago. They lost that game, but it was an incredible experience. Always fun to be down here. Saints 2.5. Who dat?
Raiders at Broncos. Oh my God, this is a game where is a head scratcher. I felt bad for Derek Carr last week in the press conference after they got beat again, and they're basically they're 2-7. They got knocked out of the playoffs. They would have to win out to even have a shot. That's not going to happen. Derek Carr cried on TV. Cried in the press conference. He cried. I mean, look, real men cry. Your mom calls me the dick for a meal of radio. I get it. Bannon made me cry on live TV the other day. So, I mean, I get the guy cried. I mean, he feels bad for his team, and he thought they'd be better, and they suck. And so it's a tough thing. The Raiders just are not a good football team. Josh McDaniels horrible. I don't care that he got a vote of confidence. But you look at Denver and you say to yourself, how am I going to ever lay 3 points on this team? They don't score. I mean, they don't score a touchdown. So, the best they can do is get like 4 field goals. I think they scored 1 touchdown Sunday against Tennessee, but a guy fell down. One of our defenders fell down, and they had a receiver wide open. Look. Denver is so pathetic, but they're at home and the Raiders are done. So as bad as Denver is, I'm going to lay the 3 and go with the Broncos because the Raiders are done. They might not win another game this season. Their quarterback is a mess. He's crying. I'll go with Wilson over Carr minus the 3. Nate?
I like the. I mean, this feels ridiculous to say, and I'm sort of like hate myself for saying it. The narrative is just so bad with the Raiders, right? Like, you lose to a guy who's never had any real coaching experience in his life. Everyone's down on the Raiders. Everyone's down on Mark Davis, sort of in his backing of Josh McDaniels, who's just been a disaster in Vegas. But so I'm sort of inclined just to take the Raiders just to fade the public narrative. The Raiders are bad, sure, but the Broncos are bad too. And these are two coaches that are probably coaching for their lives right now, right? Either of them could get fired after this game, and nobody would be surprised if somebody loses. So I'll take the Raiders here. Everyone's down on them, so I'll jump on them while everybody's down on them. I'll take the Raiders.
Jack?
Quick aside for our listeners here, there are only two men who cry on television more than my dad, and that would be John Boehner and Van Jones. Every time Dad gets in front of a camera, he starts crying about 2011 or whatever. So just always watch out for that. A couple interesting statistics here. Broncos Raiders. So the Broncos they score the least amount of points in the NFL. They also give up the least amount of points in the NFL. That is, if they finish the season that way, that'll be the first time that's happened since 1946. That's like World War II. I forgot we even had football back then. So that's not good. The Broncos games have hit the under. In every single game, it's hit the under except against the Raiders, where it was like 30-29 high-scoring game. So, who knows? I'm going to take the under here just based on the statistics. The Broncos can't score, but they have an incredible defense. The Raiders aren't going to score here. This game's going to be, 17-13, and it's going to be an easy win. I'm hammering the under big time. I mean, big time. This is an easy win for me.
Giorgio Bailey says he likes Denver at home, lay the 3. Also, Rich Paxton says hockey players cry. I don't know. I don't have any idea about that. I'm not really a hockey fan. Not that I'm not a fan. I just don't. I never played hockey. I never put a pair of ice skates on, so I don't know the game. I don't follow it, so I can't comment. But okay, so we got through the Denver Raiders. I can't believe, Nate, you bet against your team last week. I went to bed after they got beat, and I think I bet Dallas.
Won.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
But I bet Dallas, and I got a 28-14 lead, and I'm counting the money. I'm saying, well, I had a good week, right? And then, of course, they get beat in overtime. And when they were up 28-14, I said, man, you bet against your team. And then they get beat. So even though you won the bet, it's wrong. I mean, it's wrong, Nate. It's wrong. It's bad juju. It's bad for the soul. It's bad. You never bet against your team, dude. It's so bad. It's like, it's cringy. Anyway, Dallas at Minnesota. Everybody's telling me to bet Minnesota. All my friends love the Vikings, right? They're 8-1. My son Joseph says they're going to the Super Bowl. Why do you guys pick them to win the division? They look unbeatable. Dallas coughed that game up last week like a hairball, like a Sammy hairball, who by the way threw up again today because Jack's not home, right? So I got to deal with that. I love Joseph, Dallas here. Jack, I mean Joseph. I get you guys mixed up. Sorry, I'm getting old. Dallas minus 1.5 in Minnesota. They come back. They win this game. Every game the Vikings play is like a field goal. Maybe they win this game. I love Dallas coming back after that disaster in Green Bay. Lay the 1.5. Nate, you're a Cowboys fan. You're up.
Yeah, I mean, give me a hard time all you want about betting against my team. I know my team, and I'm not blind to their deficiencies and faults and tendencies, right? So you are. You can't ever see the Titans for what they are, but I can see the Cowboys for what they are, and I know when they're going to, stub their toe. It just felt like a classic spot for the Cowboys to do that. I was right. I made money. You lost money. We move on. Pretty typical story. So, I mean, but that being said, I do like the Cowboys here. I'm back on the Cowboys again. Minnesota's sort of a fraud team. I don't think they're for real. They don't feel for real to me. They don't feel as good as their record. So Cowboys bounce back and get right here. I'll lay the one with the Cowboys.
Okay. Jack?
This was the best case scenario for the Cowboys for this line, was the Vikings winning that game. because this line should be -3 or -4. You only have to lay 1.5, while the Cowboys are far and away, even though the record doesn't reflect it, a better team than the Vikings. The Vikings have Justin Jefferson, full stop. That's why they're winning these games. And Kirk Cousins is kind of backing his way into these one-score wins. Last year they lost all those games with one score. Now they're winning them. I'm laying the points here. Dallas is going to win this game outright. 1.5 is a gift. Hammer it. Let's go to the next game.
Okay, Bengals -3.5 at Pittsburgh +3.5. Okay, I'm done. I'm done betting against Pittsburgh at home as an underdog. I've done it every single week. They're an underdog at home. They beat me every single week. Now I'm done with that, right? I mean, I'm stubborn, but I'm not stupid. That's the difference. I'm going with the Steelers +3.5 at home. I don't know why. The Bengals are better. I don't know why. They're not very good, but they cover at home. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Pittsburgh and this coach they've got. I don't know how he does this, because you look at this game on paper, you're like, Pittsburgh's not very good, but at home as an underdog, their coach wins games at home as an underdog. I'm taking Pittsburgh +3.5 over the Bengals, who don't look that good, by the way. Jack.
I'm with you. Pittsburgh is going to win this game outright. The TJ Watt factor is in full effect, and we're hammering the Steelers the rest of the year. Listen, I don't even want the points. I'm taking the money line. I took the Jets and Steelers and parlayed that money line bet and got some incredible juice. It's like I don't know, it's not +4, but 400, but it's like +350 or something. I'd have to look it up. I think both those games are going to hit. I don't want the points. Don't give them to me. Don't give me the points. Give me the money line. The Steelers win this game totally outright. This is a bad matchup for the Bengals. TJ Watt's an absolute wrecking ball with this Bengals offensive line, which I don't care what people say. It still stinks. Bengals lose. Steelers win. Pound it.
So, Nate, what is wrong with the Bengals here? I mean, what happened to this team?
Well, I mean, they still struggle to sort of protect Joe Burrow, right? And their defense isn't great. And this is mostly just that I just like the Steelers team. I think the Steelers team is getting a lot better really fast. Jack's right. TJ Watt is huge. Kenny Pickett is better. And Mike Tomlin is just silly as an underdog. That's like, the trends go back like a decade of him just being unreal as an underdog, especially at home, especially against division foes. Blah, 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 blah. Like, that's all, like, pretty well documented. So this is mostly just a play on, like, the Steelers being a little bit undervalued because people are still remembering what they looked like without T.J. Watt,
Right.
when Kenny Pickett wasn't playing good. So
right.
I like the Steelers here, too. I think we're all in agreement here. Steelers as underdogs are just fun. They're a better team.
Tomlin just wins as an underdog. I don't know how he does it. And at home, I mean, his record as an underdog at home covering the spread is in the over the 80 percentile. So, I'm not a numbers guy. Like, I don't bet football based on analytics and numbers. That's why I win. That's why the people that do that lose. And at the end of the season, I'm going to be up 25 or 30 games in big money, just like I always am, because I never bet that way because it doesn't work. But look, you also have to face reality. Pittsburgh's getting better. Watt's a beast. I'm getting 3.5. I'm at home. Towels are waving. Let's go Steelers. Take the 3.5. Okay, Sunday night. Now here's an interesting game, right? Chiefs -5.5. Go to the Bolts. San Diego's got. I'm sorry. Chargers got all these injuries, but they're 5.5-point underdog at home. Sometimes you look at the Chiefs. Now, the Titans should have beaten them 2 weeks ago, right? I mean, they had the game won. 3rd and 17, game's over. Mahomes scrambles for 60 yards. Then he scrambles into the 6, 3rd and 8. Then after the third,
oh my God,
2-point
get
conversion.
Over it. Why are we still talking
because
about
they had
this
two
game?
because they had
ago.
2-point conversions. They got ridiculous flags on. Titans should have won that game, but it's all Mahomes.
Well, this is the only game that John watches, right?
Pick the
so
game
of course
right now.
he just
Pick the game right now. Pick the Chiefs.
Chargers plus
Don't
5.5.
talk about the Chiefs. Titans.
Chargers
there
plus 5.5.
Yeah, of course.
Chiefs aren't that good.
Listen, yeah, clearly we know. Yeah, your logic was so sound that with the Steelers game where you said the towels are going to be waving, so the Steelers are going to win. Now you're saying the Chargers are going to win because 2 weeks ago the Chiefs won in a game they shouldn't. You're just all over the place with this analysis. classic, Godzilla picks here.
That's why I win, though.
You don't, though. Is the problem?
You don't win.
500, so you kind of win.
I'm one
it's
game.
the worst record on the show.
I'm one game under 500 right now. At the end of the season, both you guys are going to get smoked because I'm going to be 30 games over, like I always am. Every year, I'm 30 games over.
We're at 58. We're at 58%. You're at 49%, and so we win.
Hey, by the way, in my percentage, you can't count ties and pushes on my percentage. That's just wrong.
Yeah,
right?
That's very, very.
You got to get those off.
So, yeah, absolutely, very convenient for you. So, listen, this line opened at +7. It moved to +5.5 for the Chargers. That means that all the big money's on the Chargers. Nobody believes in the Chiefs. I hate the Chargers. I think they stink. I'm going with the Chiefs -5.5. Nate?
I'll take the Chargers +5.5 just because this line has moved from like 6.5-ish to 5.5, which makes me think that, someone somewhere thinks or knows that the Chargers are getting healthier. So just because the way the line is trending down and just because the Chargers are like just laundry list of injuries everywhere all over the field. So if the Chargers are healthier, I'll take 5.5. The Chiefs aren't, super impressive this year, not as impressive as they looked early in the season. So I like the Chargers here. They tend to play close games, divisional game. They can have my money.
Monday night, San Francisco goes to Arizona. Everybody knows I hate the Cardinals. Their practices suck. They don't work hard. They got a horrible coach. Their quarterback plays Nintendo games on the sidelines. Having said all that, 49ers, 8-point favorite in the desert. That's a lot of points on a Monday night going on the road. And I don't like the Cardinals. I don't like their team. But I don't like laying 8 with a team with no offense. And that's basically what San Francisco is. I see San Francisco winning this game, 24-17 or 24-20 or something like that. I cannot lay 8 on San Francisco ever. They have no offense. I'm going to take the cultureless, laziest, awfulest team in the NFL. I think they're total fraud. But 8 is just too many. I'm going to go with Cardinals +8 in Phoenix. Jack?
It is a lot of points to lay, and I do love the 49ers. I've been on them all year. The only game we faded them was the Falcons. We were right about that because we're always right because we're at 59% winning percentage, unlike John, who's at 49%. I like the under here at 43.5. Niners can't score. Cardinals stink. Niners got a great defense. Monday night game stinker, under 43.5. Nate?
I like the Niners here, and I'm seldom on the Niners. Also, should be noted this game is in Mexico City, international game on Monday night.
I didn't know that.
Neutral field.
Neutral field. I did not know that.
I like the Niners here just because we haven't seen I'm not sure we've seen what their offense can be with Deebo Samuel and Christian McCaffrey yet, and I think it's getting better. Mostly this is just to play against. I don't know who's going to play quarterback for the Cardinals. It's -8 right now. Kyler Murray's hurt. Hamstring injuries sometimes take a long time to heal. Even if he has to play, he's, going to be hobbled. I don't know how they can score points. Colt McCoy played for Kyler Murray last week, but now he's injured too. I'm not sure if, Cliff Kingsbury might be suiting up, signing a 1-week contract to play, on Monday. In which case,